Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Conversations with a Pro Trader. I'm your host, Greta Wall, and with me today is James Young. James is a new trader here to join us on this program, is a contributor with T3 Live. He helps run the Strategic Day Trader VTF alongside Sami Abusaad, who has been on this program before. So, James, thanks so much for joining me for this today.
Thank you for having me, Greta. Glad to be here.
Yeah. All right. So since you're new here, first, let's have you introduce yourself for the audience. Tell us how you got into trading, how long you've been trading, etc.
Yeah, so I'm James. I've been a T3 moderator for about 4 years now. And before all of this, pretty much I was in the apparel manufacturing business. And at the time, I was doing pretty well for myself, but I wanted to grow the money I was making. But the problem was I was completely illiterate when it came to investing. So I started researching and attending a bunch of seminars and buying courses, everything from real estate investing to entrepreneurship and of course stocks, until I finally came across one of T3's webinar, and it was for Sami's mentorship program on day trading. I didn't know a thing about it, and I ended up taking it. It was like a week-long event out in Chicago, and absolutely fell in love with it. I remember during that week, one of the days I told myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And ever since then, I kind of went all in. So about 4 or 5 months after that, that's when Sami reached out to me personally, asking me to be one of the moderators. And initially I turned it down because I thought he was absolutely crazy for asking me. Because you have to understand, like 4 or 5 months prior to that, I didn't even know what day trading was.
Yeah.
So now for me to, call plays and teach in front of hundreds of people live every single day just didn't make sense to me. But I remember that night I immediately regretted it. Like I kept telling myself, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I know I'm going to regret this. This is a chance for me to learn from the best in the business. And, when is success ever supposed to feel comfortable, right? It's about uncomfortable things that makes you grow. So the following day, I was like, you know what? I'm all in. Let's do this, Sami. I'm in. Changed careers immediately, and then been a full-time trader ever since. And here I am today.
And so, how has accepting that and taking on that role within the room changed your own personal trading for yourself?
I mean, it really put my back against the wall. My A game every single day. So it really helped accelerate my trading because now I have other people in the room that are relying to me, and there's cameras in my face pretty much. So it kind of gives me accountability, and it really put me in a situation where I have to bring my A game every single day. So.
All right. So with that, describe your personal trading style and how you've developed your own strategy over time.
So my trading style, I like to trade gaps. As a day trader, I need the price to move right now. I don't have days, weeks, and months for it to get to the price that I want. I need the price to move this very same day. And gaps create that, whether it's from news, drug trial results, or earnings reports, whatever it is, it creates attention. It creates enough volatility to give the possibility or the potential for it to move those day, weeks, months of moves in that single day. Like, for example, let's say I was in the Tesla and yesterday it closes at $200 and today opens at 201. Like, who gives a shit, right? I'm sorry. Okay, can I curse on here?
I don't know if compliance will love it. So yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
But let's say instead it closes at 200 and then opens at 100 today. Now everybody's kind of sweating that's in it, and they're going to be paying attention to it. Even the people that aren't in it, they're going to be paying attention to this stock. So if it continues to sell off, it's going to kind of create this pressure on the people that are still in it and causing this kind of snowball effect. And that's when I come in and kind of catch that move lower. That's kind of the gist of the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I did not come up with this strategy. Everything I
Mm-hmm.
learned is from Sami, so all credit goes to him.
Hmm. And so when you're looking for those gaps on a day-to-day basis to pick which stocks out of the thousands that are out there, what's your process to find those stocks that you want to trade daily?
So every day in the pre-market, I'm scanning for gaps because that's what I trade. So anything that's gapping that day, I'm putting it together a list. Sami puts together his list, and then a gentleman in the room that goes by the name of GB, shout outs to
Mm-hmm.
him. He also puts together his list, and then we kind of combine and make an ultimate list because we all have different scanners, and then
Mm-hmm.
just go through that one by one. And we kind of have this um, we have this analytic approach to rating these gaps so that we can kind of sort them to my favorites, what to watch at the open, what I can watch for later, and then just kind of put them on thumbnail charts to watch throughout the day. But there is a way, that I do kind of analyze them to where I know which ones to watch at the open and put to focus on that day.
All right. So what are your favorite indicators when it comes to charts, what you're looking for?
Indicators, I only use the simple moving average.
Okay.
So it's the 20 moving average and the 200 moving average. Really, that's all I need. I mean, aside from the candles, the volume, the level two, time and sales, and then I guess time frame. You give me those
Mm-hmm.
seven, good.
All right. So for everyone that's here with us live, just a reminder, I did put a comment in the chat so everyone can see where it's at. Submit your questions for James as we talk here in this first half, and then the second half of this event, I'll be sure to ask him all of those questions so they're all answered. So don't think your questions are not being answered. I do see some of those starting to come in. We do that in the second half of this. So submit them so we have a good pile up going as they come into your mind. Okay, James, so we've kind of learned about you and your trading and who you are as a trader. So now we'll get into kind of usually my first question to traders on this program, and that is, how would you grade your week of trading so far on your typical school grading scale, an A to an F, and why?
All right. Coming out of one of the slowest months of the year, and we're kind of in the dawn of earnings season, so I haven't been too active on the day trading side, but
Mm-hmm.
from the I have done, probably like a B, just
Okay.
because I think there's always things I could have done better. I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, I feel like I could have been a little bit more aggressive. Like things were falling through a little bit more in the morning. So I definitely feel like I left some money on the table, but A plus plus in terms of patience because the market has
Mm-hmm.
been pretty. So yeah, GPA 5.0 in patience.
That's great, and that's a key
Yeah.
thing for a trader. On a day like today, when you say you feel like you left a little bit of money on the table, what are the things that you do, after the market closes or pre-market tomorrow morning for yourself to, leave that behind and focus on a new day of trading tomorrow?
Yeah. So I mean, it's been slow. So for today to kind of the activity pick up, that's a good sign always. So
Mm-hmm.
even though I do capture a lot of the moves, that kind of shows me a signal for tomorrow. Maybe I can be a little bit more aggressive, and maybe things will start to turn over. So it's all about adjusting to the market and trying to get it, always tapping in and getting a feel for it, and just making the right adjustments. So it's not like I'm going to be coming out tomorrow guns blazing just because I feel like I missed out today, but also,
Mm-hmm.
just in the back of my head, maybe things are kind of shifting. That's
Okay.
where.
Yeah. So tomorrow, or sorry, we got the latest piece of inflation data this morning, and that was part of what kind of caused the market to pick up. Traders, I think, were, at the beginning of the week, it was quiet, waiting for these pieces of inflation data that were coming. So we got the first of that this morning, the September PPI, which came in hotter than expected. How would you describe the market reaction to that data, and how did you trade it yourself throughout the session?
So I think the month-to-month numbers came in higher, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else came in pretty much as expected, right? So in the morning,
The headline year over year was hotter, but the core was like right in line. Yeah.
in line, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in the morning, I mean, we gapped up, so I felt like the market kind of shrugged it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I was seeing a lot of follow through in the morning. So I feel like um, there were some opportunities there. But then heading into lunch, that's when
Mm-hmm.
we got some divergence in the market between the Qs and the IWM. So it did get a bit choppy heading into the Fed minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but pretty much it was kind of a nothing really happened, and we kind of recovered, held bullish. So pretty much took it easy after that, I would say.
Okay. So tomorrow morning is like kind of the big inflation number. The September CPI is the one that everyone kind of pays attention to. How are you preparing for that data? Like, what's your strategy heading into binary events like a CPI release or jobs report or a Fed meeting, things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really trade into that because
Okay.
who knows how the market will react, right?
Right.
I mean, we saw the NFP reports recently come out double over what was expected and the market gap down.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, I don't know how the market will digest the information, even though if I'm right about the information. So for me, I like to trade around it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
let the market do its thing, and once I see that how the market reacts, that's when I jump back in the pool and let price action kind of guide me.
All right. So as you mentioned, the Fed released the minutes of its September meeting this afternoon. That showed officials, as the statement said after the meeting, this just reaffirmed officials during that meeting felt that one more rate hike would be appropriate this year. Since the meeting, though, there's been a major run up in Treasury yields, a little bit of a pullback the past couple of days, but really large jump since the meeting. Some Fed officials have come out this week and said, hey, maybe we don't need that other rate hike. So do you think that that run up in Treasury yields may allow the Fed to skip the additional rate hike and just leave rates where they are?
Yeah, I think that's possible because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the treasury yields have gone way up, that means the cost of business have gone way up. So, which can slow the economy. So that's maybe them saying, just one more rate hike or maybe even skipping this overall does make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
that can also explain why or the recent market rally because it does
Mm-hmm.
make sense. That's just belief. So,
Okay. Q3 earnings season, as you mentioned, does begin with the big banks this Friday. Big thing for earnings in general tend to be, most active times for most day traders. So what are your expectations for this earnings season compared to the last two that we've seen this year?
yeah, I mean, the last two earnings seasons have been kind of a disappointment in terms of like opportunities for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we can finish kind of um, I mean, the banks, the JPM is reporting. Are you asking like in terms of how
Just
the
like the
earnings?
earnings season as a whole.
Oh yeah,
Like
earnings
a
season as
lot of
well.
people are saying this could be a really bad earnings season. A lot of it's like 50-50 on what people are expecting on like the
Yeah,
profits
it,
and
it is. It does feel like a coin flip because
mm-hmm.
just because I did see like JPM, actually the banks do look kind of bearish
Uh-huh.
overall. JPM seems to be this one of the ones that did held up pretty nicely out of the
Mm-hmm.
banks, and they're the ones that are kicking it off this Friday. So it is kind of a coin flip for me. But I'm hoping that as long as we get follow through this earnings season, that's all I
Mm-hmm.
care about. The
Mm-hmm.
upside to the day. As long as we see less choppiness, that's what I kind of want.
Hmm. So, do you trade more actively or less during earnings season? And what is the strategy you use to look for gaps that you want to trade in the middle of earnings season?
Oh yeah, I mean earnings season, that's like Christmas to
Mm-hmm.
me because everything is gapping, everyone's reporting, the big names are reporting, gets the markets moving. So a lot of activity, a lot of symbols. Usually I'm having to wake up probably 30 minutes to an hour earlier because the
Mm-hmm.
gap's so long and there's so many things I have to go through. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping we could kind of finish this year on a strong note with more opportunities and follow through.
Do you do a lot more pre-market and aftermarket trading when it comes to earnings season?
No, I almost never trade in the pre-market or
Okay.
after hour.
Hmm.
I have, but I rarely do.
Okay. And is there a reason for that personally, or?
I think for how I like to trade, it just makes it more difficult. And then the
Hmm.
liquidity right there. some things are too volatile for me, so I
Mm-hmm.
just tend to of the harder trades.
Okay. So looking at the overall market, how would you just describe the current sentiment and action?
I am bullish, but
Okay.
carefully bullish,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel the key levels to kind of look at is for the SPY would be like 420, and then the Qs maybe like 350. So as long as we don't take those numbers out, I feel like we're gonna hold. I know the IWM is the one that needs to play catch up, but those are the key areas I'm looking at. If those don't break, I feel like yeah, we're gonna hold for the rest of the year.
Okay. Um, and what stocks or sectors specifically would you say you're bullish on right now and why?
Um, the one that comes to mind is Google. I feel
Okay.
like Google is kind of leading the pack out of the Magnificent Seven, followed by Meta.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like both of them didn't quite participate with the recent market sell-off, like how Apple and Amazon did. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like Meta coming in second, and then some honorable mentions: Nvidia, Tesla. They all look okay also.
Mm. Okay. And then on the flip side of that, what are you feeling more bearish about and why?
Bearish, I don't have anything that I'm long-term bearish on. So I would say, yeah, I don't have anything that
Yeah,
comes to.
that's totally fine. Okay, let's get into some audience questions because we have some good ones. Our first comes from Zachary. And so you were mentioning Sami a lot at the beginning. So he wants to know, who is Sami and can we find your mentor on socials? I don't think we can find Sami on social media, but where can someone find him if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so you're not going to find him in social media. But yeah, so he's the moderator, the moderating that I do is in his room. So you can find him in the strategic day trader room at T3 Live. That's his
Mm-hmm.
room. He's also in the strategic swing trader room. So that's more
Mm-hmm.
of the swing trade. If you're more interested in that, he also has a room for that he runs. So you can find him in any of those. And he has a bunch of courses that you can find at T3 Live also.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. All right. So to Zachary, I in the comments just I spelled Sami's name for you because it can be difficult. Sami Abusaad, and I also wrote down the T3 Live Strategic Day Trader BTF. So if you wanted to look those up, his name. If you look up his name, you'll find courses, YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff from Sami that you can watch. All right. So Derek asked, when it comes to gaps, don't you want to catch the stock before it gaps up or down? What would you look at to potentially do that before any news, results, earnings reports, etc.? Sounds like you are looking at stocks that had already gapped. And he added, I would imagine charts and market movers above average volume in days prior with a good product, but I'd love to hear what you do.
yeah, I mean, Sami also has a strategy called the earnings strategy that he does that you could
Mm-hmm.
also find in the swing trader room. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a strategy where you would get in before they report and
Mm-hmm.
catch the move, whether they gap up or down. But the reason why I do it after is because um, there's you want it to. So there's two ways to do it, right? One's a swing, you're holding it overnight, and then
Right.
day trade, you're doing it the same day. So two different approaches. I do both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's I do both.
So when you're getting into a stock after it has already gapped up or down, uh, how are you catching a further move in that stock? What are you looking for that gives you conviction to say, okay, this is where I should enter, and I see the potential for it to go higher or lower from here?
Yeah. So the basic methodology is around gaps, and then
Mm-hmm.
inside of that, I'm using like patterns, right? So setups, so like buy setups, sell setups, breakouts,
Mm-hmm.
breakdowns. There's only
Mm-hmm.
really four. So buy setups, breakdown or breakouts, and then 1, 2, 3 we use, which is kind of a pause and refresh, like a secondary entry that we do, and then a climactic buy setup is when it's kind of a counter trend play that we do, and then those are the really only four. Um, People can have a bunch of names for it, but and have
Mm-hmm.
variations for it, but those are the really four setups that we can really find and trade off of.
Okay. Kevin asked, would you share your best practice for minimizing taxes as a day trader? Also, when it comes to filing taxes, do you have to enter each trade one by one, assuming you don't hire a CPA? So it's a question about the logistics of being a trader.
Yeah, so that's funny because today I had a meeting with my CPA, and then we kind of laid out that with how we can minimize that. But I mean, the best way is to, because we're all in different situations, we're all in different states, different parts of the world. The best way is to just talk to your CPA. Hopefully, that's familiar with day trading. The beauty of my CPA is that he himself is a day trader, so he understands what I'm trying to, or what's going on. So I would say just find someone in your local area who is familiar with day trading, that is a CPA.
Okay. Laith asked, what exactly do you look for when deciding to enter a trade? He says, I understand you like to trade gaps, but what exactly is your trigger?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, there's only 4 patterns: the buy setup, breakouts, the 1, 2, 3, and then the climactics, which is counter trend plays. So they're patterns that you look for, setups inside of those candles or on the intraday charts, inside of the gaps that we try to find.
Let's talk about all of those setups so people can understand what you're talking about. So start with the first. You said the buy setup, correct?
I mean, I wish I could show draw something. So, so a buy setup is when you get a pullback, right? When you get a pullback, stock is moving higher, pulls back before it continues higher. So, I mean, there's only 2 ways price can correct, right? It's either through time or through price, because price doesn't just keep climbing forever. There's a time it has to slow down, and you do that either on a pullback, which is how it corrects through price, right? Correcting to time is when the stock price bases, where it stays and holds in that price range before continuing higher, kind of taking a breather, right? You run a marathon, you stop and then you can't run another marathon. You gotta rest before you run another marathon. So those are basically the idea behind it.
All right, and then what was the next one you said? The next pattern?
So the 1, 2, 3 is when you get an igniting move, right? So the move ignites, and then it pauses before continuing higher. So it's kind of a way to find the secondary entry into it if you miss the initial entry. And then the climactic is when the stocks are going parabolic, and it kind of runs out of steam, and that's when you catch the counter trend of it.
Okay, and was there a fourth, or just?
So that was the fourth. So the buy set up, the pullback, right? When the price corrects through the price, and then the breakout when the price corrects through time, and then the 1, 2, 3 as a secondary entry, and then the climactic is when you're going against the trend after it runs out of steam.
Of those 4, do you have one that you personally like the best for your trading?
Yeah, I mean, like when I used to track all my trades, the best I would find would be the buy setups, just because what happens is I would get in it off the buy setup on the pullback, and then when it gets back up to the high, it'll base there. So you get another breakout off of that, and then off the breakout, you get another 1, 2, 3, and then it continues even higher, and then that's when I make the most amount of money, because it gives you a chance to add on the way up.
All right. Ryan said, you mentioned you must bring your A game every day as a moderator. Do you feel the group audience makes you more aggressive or more cautious in what you trade?
I would say that's a good question. Well, like in terms of, I look for something, I guess it makes me better rather than just because I have to make sure I'm not, sacrificing the, what do you call it? Like I'm trying to think of the word. Like, okay, so the setup, like the ones I'm going for are more, I'm being more careful. I'm being more choosy right?
Mm-hmm.
And the one calling because I want to make sure this is right. I'm not sacrificing any quality of the setup. I'm not making me get into like B, C grade trades, right? That I may if I get bored. So it does make me kind of stay away from trouble. If that makes
Hmm.
sense.
All right. Yeah, totally makes sense. Kevin said he's a big fan of you, James, and he noticed you are super skilled at minimizing losses of bad trades. So he's curious to learn more about this, how you minimize losses without also minimizing gains.
Yeah, so I think that's hard to do. If you're going to minimize your losses, you're going to sacrifice on some of your gains as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you gotta find how your own style of trading, right? What you're comfortable with, what fits your personality.
Mm-hmm.
Because traders who do well, who give it the room, who are more loose with their management, and they may take more full stops than I do. But
Mm-hmm.
when they make money, I mean, they let things run, right? It gets to 4 or 5 times the risk units, whereas me, I may only make 2. So it's kind of a trade-off. It's kind of what you feel more comfortable doing. Um, but yeah, you just got to find your own style, I would say.
For yourself personally, are you using like a set percentage stop loss when it comes to your trade? Are you setting your stops individually based on each stock? What are you doing personally when it comes to stops?
Yeah, so I mean, management is probably something we're always working on for the rest of our
Mm-hmm.
life, right? 'Cause no matter what we do, no matter where we get out, it's always going to be, we're not going to always get out at the exact same price or the exact to the penny of like the top or the bottom, right?
Right.
So there's always something we can always do better. So I think for me, it's just trying to read the price action as well as possible. Um, and if you're having trouble, I would say track your management, which is what I've
Mm-hmm.
done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of see what after every close, just kind of go through your trades, see where you got out, see where you could have done better, and then kind of track an alternative management of what you may um, think or something you would do differently and see if that would work out better. So maybe to the gentleman or the person who asked the previous question about minimizing losses and then maximizing your gains,
Mm-hmm.
you can you can find that out if you track all of your management and see, okay, let me see if I try to loose, right? If I was more loose and let things run versus how I was tight. Or maybe if I'm too loose, maybe I'll try tracking an alternative management, just like kind of a makeup management where
Mm-hmm.
I'm more tight and see which one is working out better for you for the trade you're taking.
Right. That makes sense. So kind of like paper trading, an additional uh, strategy that
Yeah,
might work
you
better
need
for
to
you.
you don't need to actually paper trade it, but just write
Mm-hmm.
down the numbers that we got out and then go back into the charts and see where I could have done better. And
Mm-hmm.
then just try to make a system out of that, right? So you kind
Mm-hmm.
of that helps kind of take out the emotion side as well. But
Mm-hmm.
which is what I've done when I first started. Um, but as I got better at reading charts and candles and price action, that's when I kind of got more, on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. Just experience over time.
Yeah,
Zachary asked, what are your midterm and long term goals financially and in terms of entrepreneurship?
yeah. So that's a good question. So for me, like I use day trading as a way of income. So everything I
Mm-hmm.
make, that's I actually try to put it into real estate now.
Okay.
So I have a rental property now. We're looking into some land, and I like real estate for longer term. And then also I do have some early investments in some early IPOs. And yeah, I mean, everything I make, I just try to put into real estate and then just get more assets that way.
All right. William asked, what is the most common pattern that you find to be the most consistent?
Most consistent patterns.
So I think, like, out of those four patterns that you use the most, which one do you find to show up most commonly and be the most consistent
Oh, you can
for
find
trading.
that. I mean, like I said, like you can find variations of them all over.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I can find hundreds and or even thousands of buy setups. I'm pretty sure. Like in every single chart, I'm pretty sure I could point out some sort of buy setup or some sort of variation of those four.
Mm-hmm.
The skill comes in of which one of those is the one I'm going to get into, right?
Right.
That's where the gaps come in. That's where the analysis comes in outside of that. So it's not as easy as, oh, look at this pretty picture. It looks like the one that I did before. It's way more than that.
Okay. Eamon asked, how much money do you spend on average when you trade? He says, I know you mentioned $500 in your videos, but is this always the case? Do you ever go substantially over if you find a really good setup? So kind of what's your typical sizing position?
Yeah. So I mean, 500. I do risk $500 per trade, and I do keep it consistent. I don't ever go over in maybe one shot. I may leg in or add into a position that I could get in, but I always start with that $500 risk. But on the flip side, I would say I may reduce that sometimes when I get, if I'm not too comfortable, if it's a little bit too volatile for me. But I would never get into a trade initially with more than 500 just because I felt like, okay, this is really good setup that I need to go all in on. That's how you get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kai said, for day trading, what type of skills do you take from an accounting or economics education? Which do you think is more important when day trading?
Nothing. That is not an accountant, and that I don't think any of that transferred over. So really a different ball game. I feel like you can't. I mean, you could take economics class and know what the Feds are talking about and what these people are doing, but in terms of trading and price action, that comes with a totally different skill. Or
for the accounting side of things, do you think that any of that skill set helps with like the money management side of trading, or not related?
Yes, I mean, actually my brother's an accountant, but I have no idea what he did. But I'm sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you go, it'll help you somehow organize money better. But I don't think it will again translate into like trading. All that, like, it won't be that useful, I feel.
Okay. Zachary said, what's the top thing that you've noticed in people around you that's made them fail or succeed in trading?
I think it's being open-minded. I think the people that tend to kind of, because there's hundreds of traders that come and go in our room, and the ones that kind of don't make it are the ones that come in with already a belief in their head, which may not be working right from the start. That like they know it, they trade a certain way, they have a belief of this, and they don't let go of that when they come into this room and try to learn our methodology. Because what you need to do is pretty much come in with a blank sheet of paper, right? And then throw out everything that you thought you knew and then digest the information that way. Versus if you have this already belief of something that may not be working, right? And you try to combine the methodology that we try to bring you, then you get this tug of war. And in the end, nothing works, right? Your strategy doesn't work, our strategy doesn't work. So I think be open-minded, and yeah, just come in with a blank sheet of paper and try to learn fresh. And I think that's how I think that was the advantage for me, because if the people that were in my at the mentorship along with me, I mean, we're all getting the same education, we're all getting the same information, but why was I able to kind of last till today, right? It's because I didn't even know what day trading was. So
Mm-hmm.
when I got kind of soaked everything in, everything made more sense. Whereas the other traders, maybe they already had this other trading that they might have learned that didn't work out for them, but now it's kind of in their head, and that's kind of clashing with this methodology, right? So
Hmm. You say you came into this world of day trading not knowing what day trading even was, knowing literally nothing. What was it originally that made you think that's something I'm interested in and want to learn about and pursue?
Sammy's bank account. I remember. I remember. I mean, I've said this in my one of my videos. I've spent like $40,000 on courses, seminars, and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
by the tail end of that, that's when I came across Sammy's webinar. And by that time, I was like skeptical about everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I bought into him is because he was the first person that was actually open about everything. I mean, he was showing his bank statements. He was like, I'm going to trade live in front of you, not during the weekend, right? When the market is closed, and then teaching you when the market is closed. I'm going to be trading Monday through Friday live. You're going to be standing right behind my desk, watching everything I do. And that's what interested me. So, yeah.
So when you said that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago
Yeah.
when
So
you
it
started?
was June of 2019. So,
Yeah, so a
so
little over
four,
four.
so, so next month would be my 4-year anniversary of being a moderator.
Moderator. Great.
Yeah.
So when you look back on yourself as a trader 4 years ago when you were first learning and yourself now 4 years later, which I would say is a quick amount, is a quick growth for a trader,
Yeah.
especially those first few months when you went from newbie to moderator. What are how much what has changed about you as a trader in those 4 years?
You know what? I still make the same mistakes as
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. And I feel like, yeah, in the beginning, I am one of the ones or one of the few that did kind of find success in this pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that doesn't mean I didn't have, some downhills also, because
Right.
I've had some pretty bad days, but it's all part of the process. Like, I actually, now looking back at it, I'm glad I went through all that, just because it makes me the trader I am today. It kind
Mm-hmm.
of like builds me up, because if I've never made a mistake, if I've never ever made a bad trade, there's something along the way, a road ahead that is going to hit. So I'm just glad I
Mm-hmm.
got it out. So it's not, that it hasn't been all uphill from here. There's been definitely some bumps.
Mm. A lot of traders say that personality matters so much for being a trader, developing your own strategy, knowing what you personally can risk, things like that. What do you think it was about you and your personality that made you succeed in trading so quickly?
Um, Perseverance. I mean, I think if you look at, I mean, sports athletes, right? I mean, look at Kobe Bryant. Like, he in 2013, I think it was, is when he tore his Achilles, like
Mm-hmm.
at the tail end of his career, right? He didn't need to rehab, and he could have, everybody would have understood if he kind of quit, right? Or like retired after that. But no, he decided to go through rehab, go through conditioning, just to play another like 2 years and then call. So I think it's just that perseverance of, hey, I'm gonna keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
It's because this is all it takes. It's work ethic, right? It's who outworks
Mm-hmm.
who. Not, and the minute you give up, that's when it's over. So
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're, it's just perseverance. I mean, you're just getting through the difficult times and pushing forward and learning from it. That's most important. And then making the right adjustments, and then just not giving up. I'm still learning. I'm still growing, right? I'm not staying complacent. I'm still learning, growing. So there's more to go from here.
What would you say the biggest lessons you learned were the biggest lessons you learned in your like first 6 months of trading?
So I would say, yeah, if you're like a beginner trader for the first 6 months, I would say don't worry about the money. So for me, I didn't worry about the money. So for me, it was, so at the time there was still commissions. So I was risking about $50 per trade. I think it was like $6 to get in, $6 to get out. So that's like already 25% of my money that I'm risking. So I try to keep it minimal. And then the biggest thing is to try to get to a point where you're consistent, right? Because when you're starting off, you're not going to be making money. That's a fact. I mean, you can get lucky, but to be consistent, that's not going to happen. So they call it tuition, right? Trading tuition, where you're going to be paying tuition through your losses to get to where you want to be. So why not make that tuition as minimal as possible, right? And by the way, when people call it tuition, it's only tuition if you learn something from it, right? So any losses you take, if you're not learning, then that's just money going down the toilet, right? So keep your risk minimum. Don't worry about the money. Get good at getting consistent, and then you can scale up from there. I mean, that's all it takes. It's just adding another zero, and then that's it. So
yeah, that's great. Zachary asked what your friends and family thought about when you started trading.
I mean, no one really knew. I was kind of doing this on my own. My wife knew. She was super supportive about it. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of, under the dark kind of thing. Just nobody knew until one day it was like, bam.
I'm a day trader.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you did Sami's mentorship, and then you joined the room, became a moderator in the room. But outside of the mentorship, what other types of education were important to you as a beginning trader? Whether that be books, other YouTube videos, other courses from Sami or from other traders, what would you recommend to someone who's just starting?
So I would say, I mean, I did read a lot of books. I don't think like there's no like real YouTube videos or anything like that or other courses that really help to where I am today regarding like the methodology that I trade with. But I mean, books, I would say psychology books is the way to go, because that's something like Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. That's like one of my favorite books. But other than that, I think like if you're looking for a methodology, I would say find that teacher first, right? So find that person first that you want to learn from. Again, come in with a blank canvas and learn everything that that person is teaching and try to digest everything that that person is saying and what that person is doing, and always ask why. Like why am I doing A when there's B? Why do I have to do C after I look at B, right? And if that person can explain everything and everything makes perfect sense to you, you're getting that, then that's where you're getting the right match, right? Even us, I mean, even I knew what I know, and you might think, okay, that's like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm gonna, then don't, yeah, it's not gonna connect with you. Because there's millions of ways to make money in the market. So the best way is to find what makes sense to you. That's the most important. Because when it comes down to it, it's not going to be, oh, look at this picture. It looks like this picture on this sheet, so I'm going to get in it now. It's about understanding why that picture has formed and reading. It's about reading the price action that's there. So that's where the skill comes in.
What would you say sets the strategic day trader BTF apart from other trading rooms that are out there? As a trader, there's hundreds, thousands of other trading services, rooms, etc. on the internet. So what sets your room with Sami apart from those?
To be honest, I've never been in the other rooms. This
Mm-hmm.
is the only part of. But from what I hear about the people that are in the room that tell me is, um, there's no other place out there that also teaches while we're trading, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have any question while we're trading, like if you ask why, like we have an answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
So education is a big part of what we do also in the room, not just trading. And the reason is it's because if everyone in the room is looking for the same things or knows what to look for, that
Mm-hmm.
me and that's just more eyes on the ball, right? So that helps us, that helps you, that helps everybody. So it's kind of a win-win. So if you know what we're looking for and you can help us find that, it just helps everybody. So education is a big part of it.
That's great. Okay. Kevin asked how long it took you to become consistently profitable and what led to the turn from loss to profit.
Yeah, it's funny because once commissions went away, that's when I started to become profitable. So all my money was
Okay.
going to commission.
Mm.
So yeah, it took about, I would say, like 4 or 5 months. By the time I became a moderator, that's when I kind of started to break even. Yeah, so when I say it, I started to become positive, it doesn't mean I was like raking in money right off the bat. Just means I started going positive and then just kind of climbed my way up from there. So again, like keeping the risk small, but once I saw consistency, like it's crazy. If just track how much you're making every day. And I remember like it was like October, November, like my P&L started to go positive, like the tracking sheet I was doing. And then it started to get more higher. And I was excited, like, okay. So that's when I started to raise my risk just little by little as I was advised. And then, yeah, the rest is history.
That's great. Okay, so what do you see as the next big catalyst for the market overall, whether that be up or down? You're more bullish, so I figure you would say up, but
So catalyst, aliens? I don't know. I mean,
it's a hard question. Yeah.
actually there was aliens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a hard question. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, even with the war right now, which sucks, yeah, it's just hard to say. I feel like it's not going to be something we're going to be expecting. So,
Okay. So looking back on your past week of trading, kind of your past 7 days, so maybe going back to last Wednesday, tell me about the best trade you've had and what made it go well. It might not have been your most profitable trade, but one where you really followed your process and it was a good trade because you did what you're supposed to do.
yeah, good question. So I would say, okay, today I did, I think HYLN. So that was
Mm-hmm.
like the most, or the best, most profitable trade of the week.
Mm-hmm.
It was it lost like 50%. It dropped 50% today. It was a penny stock, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that was kind of funny. But earlier this week, the one I called in the room was actually the airline short. So UAL was the one I shorted that I called, and that ended up being the best, or the one that quite or followed through the best out of the airlines. And I think I managed it fairly pretty well. Got to targets, and yeah, I would say UAL, the airlines on Monday.
When it comes to managing a trade for you, do you like to scale in and then scale out? Do you like to buy and sell, all in one sweep? What's the strategy you're using?
Yeah, so if I'm scalping something, I may kind of add on to the position. And then depending on the liquidity, I may scale out or like scale down as it's moving in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it all depends on kind of how it's moving, the liquidity, and that also is going to determine kind of my sizing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really depends.
Okay. So you talked about the best trade you've had over the past week. On the flip side of that, tell me about the worst trade you've had over the past week and what made it go wrong.
Worst trade, I would say, it was okay. It wasn't this week, but it
Okay.
was a couple. And the one that pops in my head is AZN.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I feel like it was my worst trade is because it's not something I really do. It was a ADR. It's not a real gap. It was like a 5-minute breakout, and I tried to manage it loosely and ended up only losing like half an hour on it. But the fact that it's not something that I usually do, that's not in my trading plan, I think that probably was trade. That's
Okay.
those are the ones I for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had a question. I just poof. So what are you mentioned the key levels that you're kind of monitoring on SPY, cues moving forward. What else are you looking at in the market as we move into earnings season?
I mean, that's really, I mostly focus on the cues. So that's kind of where that's what's at the tip of the spear for me. And then the spot IWM, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, and what were those levels you said on SPY and Q again?
The SPY was 420, and then the Q around 350, I would say.
Okay, great. So before we go, just kind of give me if you were talking to a new trader, someone who's less experienced, maybe not brand new, but less experienced, what's your like top 3 things that you would tell them to be successful in trading that they need to focus on?
Yeah, so number 1, find the right teacher, right? Like I said, find someone that you connect with, someone that can answer all the questions that makes sense. That's like key thing, because there's a lot of information out there and it's kind of hard to kind of dig through what's BS and what's real, right? So yeah, so that's kind of the first part. And then the second part is money, right? So don't worry about money. You're not making money right off the bat. So keep that tuition as minimum as possible, right? And then number 3 would be perseverance, right? Have that Mamba mentality like Kobe did. So just continue. If this is really what you want to do, don't ever give up, right? If you want this as bad as you want to breathe, right? As Eric Thomas says, push through it and find a community. I mean, like T3, like us, like if you see the people in the room, we're all in this together. We're all help each other out. We're all rooting for each other. And we're constantly, trying to get better every day, even myself. So, and I'm also learning from the members in the room. So it's about connecting with like-minded people, surround yourself with other traders, and that's going to help you to progress.
So I know we talked at the beginning that Sami, you can't really find him on social media. Yeah, he does do a lot of YouTube videos that people can find. But for you yourself, where can the audience, if they're interested in continuing to kind of watch your trading, learn about your trading, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. I make YouTube videos. You can just type in James Rich Young, and then it'll pop up. So, and also social media, Instagram, James Rich Young. You can find me there. Reach out anytime, and I'll respond.
Okay, great. For the audience who is here with us, thank you so much for coming to this event. Right now, I'm putting in the chat. So I put James's YouTube in the chat. And then our next event is next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. T3 Live's David Prince will be back with me for that next week. So I put a link in the chat for that if you want to go ahead and sign up. James, thank you so much for joining me for this today. It was a great discussion and some really great audience questions. So I hope it was beneficial for everyone. And thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you, everyone.